The numbers show that custodial mothers were about twice as likely to live in poverty as compared to custodial fathers. So the children who were granted over to mom are more likely to be impoverished than those who live with dad. Despite financial difficulties, courts continue to give mothers custodial rights year after year. Not much has changed in 20 years, despite some who argue that judges are adapting to the new cultural norms. Still, only 1 out of 6 dads are likely to be the custodial parent. Child support is probably one of the more contentious areas of child custody. Those who pay out often feel they're paying too much, while those who receive say it's not enough. The presumption of deadbeat dads are surely buzzing your head by now, but these sky-high numbers many times stem from dads who simply cannot pay. Those who live in states that have rigid child support charts and do not forgive men who are not high-income earners. Child support arrears quickly becomes crushing debt. Child support ranges from 20% of your net income all the way up to 40% for up to 6 kids. For those who have been surprised by the news that they were fathers years later, to those who have hit hard times, child support is one area that allows for modern-day debtors' prisons. The law recognizes no difference between deadbeat from dead broke, and yet, when mom wins custody 85% of the time, her income level is never in question. Dad is punished by this outdated system when he does not meet certain income thresholds. So should only the rich be afforded the rights to see, have, or be near their children? In 1975, President Gerald Ford signed into law Section 4D of the Social Security Act, which placed court-ordered child support funds to fall under the umbrella of social programs such as welfare, TANF, and the like. As such, the amount of child support the custodial parent receives from the non-custodial parent is directly tied to the number of days the non-custodial parent receives from the court. The fewer days granted to the visiting parent, the more money that is due to the custodial parent, numbers which are filed into the federal system by way of the family court. This 1975 system was intended to hold men who did not want to be responsible for their children accountable, not the men who want to be an active parent in their child's life. Those men are simply swept into an outdated system that was meant to bridge the gap and keep women off of welfare and out of poverty. But in 1975, the gender landscape looked different. Today, there are more women graduating college than men. That number is quadruple what it was in the 1970s. Women account for almost exactly half of the workforce in the U.S. at 47%. And today, working moms are the societal norm. 75% of modern moms have full-time jobs. But yet, the rules and guidelines surrounding child support remain based on this severely outdated law.
And these aren't just numbers from the U.S. Census Bureau or Centers for Disease Control. These are real people with real stories that share one glaring common denominator. They're all men who have had their role of father diminished by the court. When I started working on my report, I received an outpouring of messages and letters from disenfranchised dads all across the country. Civil rights movements across the country over the past 50 years claim to have moved mountains to find equality for all in the eyes of the law. But when it comes to custodial rulings in family courts, the numbers show a very different story. Courts rule in favor of moms 5 out of 6 times. Can it be that in the millions of custody cases heard across the country, that only 15% of dads are fit to be the custodial parent? Famed LA-based attorney Gloria Allred once said, "Parties get as much justice as they can afford." So much so that the family law industry has exploded into a $50 billion a year business. As I began my research on this taboo topic, I began to wonder why this issue was taboo in the first place. If the topic were that a certain minority group was being disenfranchised or systematically discriminated against in, say, for example, civil courts or criminal courts, we would have heard an outcry from civil rights groups all across the country. There would be protests in the streets. But when millions of men seek fair treatment in the eyes of the family courts, our society turns the other way, ordering them to accept the rubber stamp ruling in mom's favor. Take them like marching orders to war, suck it up, and simply do as you're ordered.
One of the big cultural shifts is that gender roles have converged. They've come together, and that includes parenting roles. If you look at the statistics now in young couples, most of them, there are 2 jobs, and most of them are splitting the breadwinning, and they are splitting the household chores, and they are splitting the child care. And there are small differences that go along traditional sex or gender roles, but the differences are very small. So that horse has already left the stable. The courts are way behind. They're acting like it's the 1950s. Oh, dad's a breadwinner and mom's a nurturer of children, and so we're going to give mom custody, and dad's going to be the breadwinner, and if he gets to see him every now and in a long while, he should feel grateful for that. That is so old-fashioned. That is 50 years out of date. Come on, courts, catch up with the real world, with the real life.
The courts claim to be guided by the best interest of the child. But given that moms are granted custodial rights 5 times more often than dad, what impact might this have on the kids? More than half a century into the women's movement now, perhaps one of its most profound effects was to rightfully convince men that child rearing was not solely the job of the woman, that it too was also the responsibility of the man to be a parent. And today's modern man simply wants to be equal to his female counterpart in the lives of his children. And with the countless stories of deadbeat dads or disappearing dads and the ones who simply don't care, why then do courts take away the dads who do? Thank you for watching. I'm Manila Chan.